So our topic, or our speaker today, is Nikki Lewallen. And Nikki is the Executive Director of Rainmakers, which is a business development community that provides events and training. I'll let her tell you more about Rainmakers. She has been an integral part of Rainmakers' explosive growth. How many of you have heard of Rainmakers? Okay, lots of different people have heard about it. So she's helped triple the membership and really create that market expansion from Indianapolis throughout the whole Midwest. And she's been with Rainmakers for 7 years? 8 years. Okay. So, and she lives the model that the Rainmakers model is each and every day. And she also has a master's degree from Indiana University. So she also, I've gotten to know her personally because she helped us create the Work One Indianapolis LinkedIn series. So we have 6 new videos that are on the MakingConnections site, which are to help job seekers learn how to use LinkedIn for their job search and build connections. It works actually for anyone. So if you're interested, just go to the MakingConnections site and go through the login registration process, and you can watch those videos for free. She did a really nice job for us, and it's really helping people learn how to use LinkedIn effectively. So I've gotten to know her that way, and part of what I also learned from working with her is that she has this great love for the city of Indianapolis. You're an Indianapolis native, right? And I can tell she's got this passion for Indianapolis and the people that live and work here and their success. So please help me welcome Nikki Lewallen.
So I don't know about you, but I know that when it comes to leadership development and what I could attribute my personal growth and evolution and, you know, the amazing goals that I've been able to reach and achieve, it's been all through relationships. It all links back to someone, a particular person that took the time to invest in me or sit down with me and help me get connected to the right person. And so I can't be more passionate than to talk about this topic. And just yesterday, I don't know if anyone's heard of Mentoring Women's Network, a really awesome organization here in town that's all about bridging the gap between mentors and mentees and building the platform for everyone to be a mentor. And we had about 300 people in the room and did this almost the same session, and it was really awesome. So I can take maybe some of their stories and incorporate that into today, just kind of learning from them yesterday. So I wanted to just kick off with a couple of stories about how relationships are so critical, whether it's in your personal life or your business life, and just tell you, some stories about me to kick things off. And then I'd like to hear some success stories from you and just kind of tracking back through your life and looking at relationships and how they've helped you. These key people have helped you get from here to there. And what we're going to do today is identify new goals, or you may have written down that goal this morning, but we're going to develop a plan and walk through a step-by-step process that I teach all the time about how do we intentionally incorporate networking and relationship building to help you reach the goals today. So we're going to kind of start with learning about things that you've done so far and then build a game plan to help you get to those new goals. The other thing with this series, what I learned is a lot of you're in leadership roles, or everyone here is in a leadership role. And so I hope that this is very digestible, easy stuff that you can take back and take to your teams or take to people that you work with. That would be my goal for you today. So, and by the way, that all of us learn a couple of new things as well. So with me, a couple stories I'd just love to share with you. On the personal note, I will never forget this story because it was such a powerful example of how just a personal relationship, not through anything so strategic, but just someone that I always kept in touch with, even though we never did, ongoing business development type of relationship services together, what he did to impact me in a very critical time. And so my aunt, she was the HR director of Citizens Bank for I think about 30 years. She just retired, and she loved that bank. And she had we always heard about great things with that bank, and it was a huge win for me when she had nominated me to be a speaker for an annual event that they had. And I got I think there was maybe like 7 or 8 people that got interviewed for it, and she had, put my name in, and I got the deal. And I was like so excited. And I'll tell you my stories about being completely scared to death of public speaking and getting kind of my transition about getting to a place that I was okay with it. But this is one of my very first times that I was getting a huge chance, and it's my aunt who's put me on stage, so I need to really bring it, She's got her name name on the line. And so I'm getting ready for this day. The event is in the evening. It's like at 5:30, and I'd blocked my whole day, and I'm an early morning girl. So I was up in the morning, and I was kind of getting things together, had a few phone calls with my team, and I thought from 9 to 5, like I am just like prepping, and I'm going to just get relaxed, and I'm just going to make sure I can really bring this. So I'm on the phone with one of my staff. It's maybe like 8:30 in the morning. I'm in the kitchen at home, and I hear this water, and I'm like, what is that? Like, what's? And I go over towards the restroom and look at, and no, it's not there. Go towards the basement, and I hear this, like, I hear water, and I was like, oh my gosh! And I open the door, and I don't know if you've ever learned this lesson before, like I have, but let me teach it to you. If you don't undo your hose bib in the wintertime, and then when spring comes around, something busts inside of there, and then when, you know, everything defrosts, I don't know what happens, but your pipes burst. And it all happened on this day, and I'm like, awesome. So I'm on the phone with somebody that, you know, works with me, and I'm like, I have to go. Oh my gosh. And, you know, it's coming in through the ceiling into the basement, you know, and I'm like, I don't know, wow, what do I even do? So long story made short, I met a gentleman who was referred to me when he lost his job as a plumber. He'd been a plumber for like 15 years, has 3 kids and a wife who stays at home. And I got introduced to him with this kind of pressure of, Nikki, can you help my friend who needs to find a plumbing job? And I found someone who sold him equipment in a truck for like really cheap, and it was this amazing story. And now you probably see these vans on the road called Mishler Plumbing, and love that guy, love his family. But I met him in a time of need. We kind of walked through, and we were just, you know, I was there and helped him provide some connections. So the first person I think of is, I'm like, Nate will probably help. It has to be a plumbing issue, right? I have no idea about how stuff, I don't, but I know that probably pipes have something to do with plumbing. So I called Nate. Nate, here's what's going on. I'm like, what do I do? Panic mode, you know? And he said, don't worry. Like, I got this. You know, I'm like, we got, this happens all the time. I know it sounds crazy, but it happens. I'm like, okay. Within an hour, Nate was at my house with 3 different crews of people. One for water damage, one for electrical, because he couldn't get down there until like electricity was disconnected, obviously. And then him as the plumber, right? I left my house, like, I don't remember what the exact story was, but it wasn't 2 hours later, out getting prepared, knowing I had peace of mind to be able to do what I needed to do for the day. So just on a personal side, like, I needed to be there for my aunt. I wanted to be great. I was really developing myself. You know, it was kind of in this midst of like one of my very first speaking engagements that I really wanted to be good at, and someone there that I'd met along the way saved the day for me. So that was just so cool. On the business side, I'm very into developing strategic relationships, and what that means to me is there's 2 people that have a very unique win-win situation to help each other ongoing. And we're going to talk about that today, because all of us need that, people that are reoccurring in our lives, not just like, oh yeah, I've met them and I haven't seen them for 6 months and we kind of reconnect. Like, you need certain people in your life that you're on a residual meeting cycle with. So this gentleman, his name is Jamar Cobb-Denard. He'd be a great person to come here and, you know, actually get introduced to Dana. He runs a recruiting firm for sales talent, and he helps and trains people in a sales role. And I work in a business development capacity. So he and I have worked together for years. One year we said, he and I were like, we're going to make this year like our best year ever. And I remember it was like kicking off the year like in October. Like, that's how he is. He's always way ahead of the curve. So I'm like, I'm always glad I'm on his team because he's way ahead. It's like October, planning for the next year. We're getting ready. And it turns out that throughout the year, you know, we're checking in, doing our calls and meetings and everything. And it gets to be about September, October. And Jamar, of course, had already hit his goals for the year. And of course, I was so excited for him, but I'm like, this guy, he's always on it. I love being on his team. So he's hit his goals, and we go out and we like celebrate with like dinner and a cocktail, and we're sitting there talking, and I'm way behind. Like, I'm really not on the ball like he is. And I got vulnerable in that conversation, and I remember being very upfront about what I needed to accomplish in order to hit my big goal for the year and where he was. And I'm celebrating with him, but I'm like, I need your help now. That man took off at least 5 days of his work. And I mean, we're entrepreneurial people, so we can be flexible in that way. And so I appreciated that. That was amazing for him to do that, like, and just take on his own initiative to say, you know what, I'm just going to stop my schedule. I'm going to do what I need to do for you. 5 days he worked in my office, working the phones, driving new opportunities, because it was all about business development. I hit my goal that year because of that guy. That guy, he got 40 under 40 the next year. I mean, I was in his front row, you know, but that we still have that relationship ongoing. And it was like that I found, you know, if you have a few key people in your life that are helping you get to that place that you really want to be, you know, and you're doing the same for them, I mean, nothing's better than that. Nothing. So I'd love to hear from you for just a couple minutes. I know you didn't have, time to sit and think about maybe every story in your life to tell a great plumbing story or, something like the Jamar story. I know those are really awesome, and I've got to tell those a number of times. But just when you think about how relationships in your life have helped you get to a place, maybe it's where your position you're in right now, or something you never thought you'd accomplish, like you just were scared to death to do that, and you did. How have a relationship helped you, or what stands out? Yeah.
I can give a story.
Please.
This was, close to 20 years ago. And I'm going to date myself because also I met some girlfriends that we would watch Melrose Place together. Okay, so a bunch of us would get together, and then I, just built some relationships with some of these other friends. And one of them happened to work at what was called Manpower at the time, a temp agency. I had just gotten laid off from my organization. And I was just in supervision, but I wanted to get into HR. She worked at Manpower. We talked one night after I got laid off that there was a small company looking to build an HR department, and within 8 days of my layoff, I had a job in HR with no HR background, just like a business background, and now I've been in HR since.
Wow.
So, and it was
so
just
cool.
over Melrose Place and, Mexican dip.
Yeah.
So,
nice.
and that started my whole career in HR.
Wow.
So.
Very cool. Thank you for sharing that. Anyone else have something to share? Just a relationship success story?
I think we moved to Indianapolis in 2003, and I started working for the Indianapolis Convention and Visitors Association, which is now called MakingConnections. And I think just as I look back to relationships, everything has just escalated from that. It was a part-time job at the time for MakingConnections, which connected me to the Arts Council of Indianapolis, where I gained full-time employment in marketing, and then later got connected with the Mass Ave Arts District. It's just interesting to go back and see where it all started.
Oh, yeah.
And just all the people. I mean, there were different people in the process, but I'm still connected to all those people.
Yeah, that's awesome. Very good. Thank you. Yes?
So I had a friend, and he was somebody who, I was kind of his Dr. Phil, if you will. And he had individuals that would mentor him as well. And he somehow, I basically had a group of individuals try to recruit me when they wanted to start a non-for-profit. I was definitely the youngest of all of them. They were all, older professionals. And they kept asking me to come to their initial meetings. And so I would attend, but I said, I'm not board material. I'm so young. I'm still finishing my undergrad. And, but still, I kept attending, and in there I realized I had a voice. I had something to say. They would stop the meeting and ask me what did I think, strategic planning-wise. I also graduated from undergrad in 3 years, so 1 year early, and I had taken a 1 year off to travel. And I was going to wait to get into optometry school, which is what I thought I wanted to do. But when I did become a part of the board and incorporated the non-for-profit, I also became the program leader for our Passion for Service division. So it was basically a civic engagement platform. And I was working with the Julian Center, and there I met the attorney, and she really just took me aside and she said, you need to go to law school. We need more people like you working in, this non-for-profit world. And then I went to law school. There was no looking back. And
wow.
I think back to that leadership position of being at a young age, but those experiences and being in that position, I feel like had I not experienced them at that age, I wouldn't be where I am now. So yeah, I thought it was weird because I thought, this kid, I should not be hanging around with him, but he was the one who definitely introduced me to these individuals, and they just would not stop trying to recruit me.
Wow, that's powerful. Wow. Very neat. Anyone else have something to share before we move on to the next thing? Everyone has a packet. So I'm just kind of walking through a couple of things as a group, just a couple of different questions to gauge how we focus on what we're doing today. So when it comes to you and what you've learned so far as a best practice for spending time networking or building relationships, when it comes to being intentional about it, what do you find that you're doing right now that's working? For example, maybe you're part of a certain organization and attending that on a regular basis because that puts you with the right types of people to help you advance whatever type of position you're in. maybe like regular one-on-one meetings with certain people? Anyone doing those? Yeah.
I've initiated some coffee talks with some people, and I have a little list every week. I want to try to actually reach out, even if I can't book the meeting that week. But
Yeah.
so far it's been 3. I just started this. I've been doing it, but not intentionally to do it multiple times a month. But now I'm being more intentional about it.
And you're looking to get 3 new meetings? Is that what you said?
Oh, I've got 3 this month already. At least 3 in a
Okay.
month. Yeah.
Great. Great. Yes.
So I was afraid of networking before, but then I realized in order to succeed, you need to network. And I think when you remove the word networking out of it and just think of it as interactions with, like-minded individuals, or being able to find commonalities with, other individuals, it makes it a lot easier. And I had a lot of friends who work for they're a variety of friends, and each one of them has, I feel like, 1 or 2 connections that they feel like I would like to know. And so now we kind of share that, and because of that, I met Mark Fisher from MakingConnections, who kind of pointed me in the direction of EmployIndy from a friend of mine who works for the Economic Development Department for the state of Indiana. And so having met Mark, I feel like I was exposed to this whole new world of economic development that I had no idea was so thriving and, so interesting.
Exciting.
And so I think from that meeting on, I've made it a point to just, be able to meet any individual that I can and see, what is it that you do, to see how I can grow and how does it cultivate my mind and my thought.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, where can I help? And from that, I've actually started a lot of youth development programs, and we invite, speakers like Mark and other individuals to come speak so that the youth can also see, what to look forward to.
Yeah. Awesome. Anyone else use a certain best practice? I know Dana talked a little bit about the LinkedIn training program that I did. That was more for the job seeker side of things. I work a lot in business development, helping people build relationships and sales growth for their companies. Man, LinkedIn is such a wonderful tool as a best practice, because you can get, if you learn how to use it right, you can use it as a technology to find the exact type of person that is a win-win relationship. So that's a good one as well. Okay, so now let's talk about frustrations, because what we're going to do today is really overcome those by putting a system in place. So I just want to hear, so far, hopefully everyone has at least one frustration that they've had, in their networking or trying to build relationships, whatever you want to call it. I call relationship building, networking, all interchangeably. What have been some of the roadblocks or bottlenecks or challenges that you've had? Yeah.
Some of my roadblocks are myself. I'll just put myself out there and say that sometimes if I know I'm building a relationship, or let's take that back. If someone's trying to build a relationship with me, and I say that because I'm in HR, so everyone wants to build a relationship with you in HR. Everyone wants to be your friend because they want a job. So with that, sometimes my follow-up, you get overwhelmed with so many people reaching out to you and trying to build those relationships that I do not do well across the board with follow-up and building those relationships. And then you hate to reach out when you need them because you never followed up with them and continue that relationship. So that's one. And then time constraints. You have your personal life, you have your job, and then you know how important it is to build those relationships in the midst of that, where you have to prioritize, of course, job and personal life are up here, and then building those relationships until it's needed.
Yeah.
Sometimes you put it on the back burner.
Yeah.
And then you come back to that person like, hey, how are things going?
Yeah.
Thought about you today. Try to build that rapport back up before you really hit them with why you contacted them in the first place.
Yeah.
So those 2 roadblocks are big for me.
That's really good. Something yesterday that came up a couple times in this large room of women that I was with, people saying, because I'm very intentional about networking, especially because I work with business development people or business owners, that their life depends on their business. Like, I need to make sure that, number one, they're taking care of themselves and their business, and you have to put priorities first. And I kept hearing people, maybe 3 people yesterday say, I'll take any opportunity. I'm not on an agenda. Anyone that wants to meet with me, I'm going to meet with. And I totally understand that. And I would love to train that, like, just from a heart place, of wanting to help everyone. But it's really important to be intentional about who you're spending time with that is a win-win. Or I've seen so many businesses go out of business because they don't manage their time and they're not intentional. So just hitting on what you're saying, I think we have to be very authentic about where we're at when people reach out to us and what would you like to meet for at this time, like just pre-qualifying that, which we're going to talk about today. And I use default, like I have like leverageable defaults that I call it. And this is like, here's one of them. So I don't know if you're on LinkedIn or not, but I use it every day. Like I would use this as a response. I don't know if you're on LinkedIn or not, but I use it like almost every day. And I think if we go ahead and connect on LinkedIn, let's stay in touch. And then we'll know, maybe down the road when it's time for us to connect, let's do that. And typically their response is thanks, that's great. The other thing that I've learned is I coordinate a number of events. So, you might be thinking like, well, you've got a number of events to be able to leverage. Well, I work with people who've never had an event before, but I teach them to have an event like once a month where that brings people together in a group environment rather than doing everything one-on-one. You're still able to build that relationship. So I don't know if like for you, we'd have to talk more about your business, but maybe it's like a luncheon that you host and maybe it's quarterly, but it's still something that you're inviting them to that allows you to build a relationship because you are the point of contact that everyone's trying to get to. So just a couple, and we'll talk about a couple more of those ideas today too. What are other frustrations or just challenges or bottlenecks you've had in building relationships? Yeah.
I think my biggest frustration is knowing where to start. This is my first networking endeavor.
Awesome.
I recently lost my community relations, public relations representative, and she and I have been a team for 7 years. She's followed me 3 states, and I feel very fortunate to have her. This is a position that we're not going to replace now, and I'm like, oh my gosh, what do I do? How do I go about making relationships and learning people in a state, in a city I've never lived in before?
Yeah.
And that's my biggest frustration is where to start. I don't even have a LinkedIn. I feel like I'm doing things in an archaic way.
Yeah.
So that's my biggest frustration.
Awesome. Well, I hope, and it's so great that you're here today because by the time you walk out, I truly hope that you feel like, oh, I've got direction now. And if you don't, I'll stick around and we'll talk a little bit, but that's what this is really in place for. So you're at the right place. Yes, you had something that you wanted to share.
I was just going to say on a personal level, I feel like I do really well in one-on-one situations.
Yeah.
And then I feel really overwhelmed in a group situation and don't know how to connect with people in that type of environment.
Oh, okay. Great. One of the things that we're going to do today is craft an introduction that's very focused on why you're in the place that you're at. Like you walk into a room of 150 people. Okay, what do I say? Like if they're like, okay, we're going to go around, everybody introduce themselves. You're like, first of all, maybe that. Or if you don't have that opportunity, sometimes, and then you just have to do it on your own, and then you're like, okay, how do I get to the right person in the room? I'll show you. We did this yesterday, and it was just like magical. I'm like, it is so simple. It's just thinking through how do we craft that message to get us going to the right people in the room based on what we need. So I promise we'll hit on that today. What else? Any other frustrations? Yeah.
I guess running into the same people over and over again.
Okay.
And so it's like, how do I mix it up?
Yeah.
To get exposure to different people. So.
Yep.
Because otherwise you feel like, am I wasting time, running into the same people because I already know them.
Yeah.
So.
Is it like an organization that you typically go to, and then it's like the same faces because you're all members?
Yeah.
Kind of something like that? Okay. Yeah, we'll talk a little bit more about that as well. Anything else you want to kind of add to our list for today? Oh, yeah. Yes.
I think just time period and making an intentional part of my day. Because you get so busy with, making cupcakes, and you're good at making cupcakes, but you don't have time for that extra. Like that feels like that's a whole other job.
Yeah.
That's like another position like you have at your company, and
yeah.
to be able to actually have it in my time to do it.
Yeah.
Feels like I don't have time to do that. I gotta write the script. I gotta, make the cupcake. I gotta ice the cupcakes. Like you don't feel like you have the time to actually do the building piece.
Yeah.
Of it.
That's great. Every once in a while, I see someone's title on LinkedIn that says relationship developer, and then I scroll into their profile and it says, my position is completely focused on just going out and building relationships. And I'm like, wow, what a cool job. Like, we all get to do that as part of what we do too. And it's like, we have to build in that time, whereas some large companies, that is a main role, in a lot of companies. And so how the heck do you balance it with whether you're a business owner or wearing a big hat in a company? I know the time thing is sometimes challenging, so we'll definitely touch on that today. The other thing about it is it's not only the time that you block to go do the activity, like go to these events, then the follow-up. That's even more important, because you could go to this, and I already talked with 3 of you and got business cards to talk further. Well, if we don't follow up, like, I just wasted the time. I mean, I got to come here and share my, training with you, but I wasted the time and opportunity. And I think a lot of times, people will block time to go to the event because, gosh, I can barely fit that in my calendar. But if we don't follow up, it's like, oh yeah, we met like 2 years ago at that work one thing. Yeah. And then, and you've lost touch. So we'll talk more about that. Okay. So when you're looking towards the bottom of your page here, so today we're going to be all about being intentional. We're going to start with your goals and what you want to accomplish. And, there's probably tons of goals that you have, and we're going to break down just a couple of those and be very intentional about the activity, the people, the time that you're spending in order to reach those goals, to build the right relationships with people. And the 4 things that I, love to focus on and accomplish. 1, having the goal in mind, with anything, you think I'd love to do this life wheel process where you like draw a circle and you cut it into pieces and you look at all the pieces that right now are important to you. Your health, your spiritual self, your career, all of these things. Well, we have to keep all of those in balance. And unless we have a goal for each of them, it's just kind of like on autopilot. We're not getting anywhere. So same thing with networking and relationship building. Most people have never put a goal with it. It's just like, oh, well, if that event comes to my inbox, I'll say yes if I have time. And that's completely backwards. So we're not being intentional on what is it that we want to accomplish, and then finding the things that are going to help us accomplish that. Number 2, being strategic. So strategic means I've done my homework. I've built a plan to think through how I'm going to make this happen and who I need to be spending time with, rather than, what's the opposite of being strategic? I don't even know what that word is, but there's really no plan to it, right? Yeah. So the next is follow through. So having a plan for follow through. Once one of the components of this session today is about continuing those relationships. So not just finding the right people, but how do you not run into them and the next time and say it's been 2 years. And then the next is finding people that you spend the most time with that are win-win opportunities. That means that you win, they win. Yesterday, a number of the frustrations that I heard from those women were, I go to these meetings with like hidden agendas. Like someone wants to meet with me, and I get there, and it's like, what? We are not on the same page. So making sure that it's a win-win from the beginning. And I know, I don't know about you, but I've definitely been asked to go on a meeting to build a relationship, and they're trying to sell me something, like my new financial advisor. And I'm like, no, it's no. So definitely making sure that it's a win-win. So let's go ahead and turn the page. And I would ask that the rest of the time here today, it's going to be spent very collaboratively, not much of me talking, a lot more of you doing. So what we're going to do is just really, let's be authentic with each other and like work through this stuff. And if you don't understand when you're talking with your partner, like, I don't know what you're saying, or I don't understand, or you're talking above my head, say that. Like, let's help each other. So when we walk out of here, like, our introductions are clear, our goals are clear. So let's help each other, throughout the process today. So the first thing I want you to do, and this is before we get into partners, is we're just going to spend a few minutes quiet time. I want you to write down one long-term goal that you're looking to accomplish, and I've got an example there: advance to the next level in my company in 18 months. Or maybe another one is, I want to own my own business, like something big. What is your big long-term goal? And for you, long-term could be 1 year, it could be 10 years. Then the next is short-term. Maybe that's something that you're kind of nervous about right now. You got butterflies. You're like, I got to make this happen. Or it's just something that it's been on your mind to get started. Maybe it is a month from now. Maybe it's a year from now. Whatever your short term is, you go ahead and write it down. So go ahead, just quiet time for a couple minutes. Write down your long term and short term goal. Okay, so what we're going to do next is, I will be the first to admit that a lot of what I'm talking about today is not rocket science at all. It's just taking the time to sit down and think through it. So how many of you, for the first time, and I'm going to say that yesterday I did new ones and it was the first time for me, how many of you, this is the first time you've actually written down at least one of those, like actually wrote it on paper? Okay, so just doing that is a great practice. Now let's get in, bless you. Let's get into partners, into pairs now, and let's just talk through, between the two of you, just brainstorm for a couple minutes. What do you know are the key things that you already know are in place that you could be doing more of before we work on new material? I'm sure there's things that you already know you could be doing. So if you could think of what are 2 steps that you know you could be taking, maybe your partner will give you a great idea too. So let's take about 10 minutes to do that. Okay, well, let's come back together. I want to keep everybody on time just because I know probably have things that you need to do after this today, so I'll keep us on time if we can move forward.
No, we have goals to meet.
I know, right? I know. Yeah, it's exciting to talk about. So. Okay, so did everyone come up with at least one action item that you already knew, based on what you defined that you can be taking to reach those goals that you put down? Everybody come up with at least one thing? Good. Wonderful. Okay, let's move on to the next step. So now thinking about a plan as far as the goals that we have and who we need to be spending time with, let's go ahead and move on to the next page, page 3. And let's really think about who are the most opportunistic people or the most win-win opportunity, person that you need to be sitting in front of and having those coffee meetings, having phone conversations with, connecting with on LinkedIn, for example. Who are they when we think about this? So I'm just going to run you through a number of different items to think about, and then when something comes to mind, write it down. Okay, so first of all, are you wanting to work with a certain type of person in an organization? Like, do they have a certain title? That would be really helpful for you to get in front of. So maybe it's a business owner. Maybe it is an HR director. Maybe it is someone that has an executive leadership role because you're working on being mentored by them. So when it comes to the ideal person that's going to be able to help you and who you need to be spending time with, can you identify them by a particular title? How about when you think about somebody that you want to be spending time with, are they going through something that brings the need for you? So for example, do you want to work with organizations that want to grow their teams, right? So they're going through kind of a lull phase, they've been downsizing, and you know about that. So the trigger event that you want to get in, that it would be a win-win, is they're, downsizing or, less staff than what they want. Maybe someone is just in the process of starting their business. Like that might be a good one for Phil. We had talked a little bit about what you do. So knowing that you want to meet with someone who's just in the process of getting started, a startup type of business, and that would be a trigger event. Go ahead and write that down. Does this person have a particular accreditation or accomplishment? Maybe a certain what do you call that? The accreditation behind their name. That's that type of person that you want to be able to learn from, or they could provide that value to you. Is where they're located important? Maybe it's a certain target area that you're looking to grow, or it's important that it's in a certain community. I know a lady yesterday said that it was really important that these people are in Lawrence because that she has this goal to help with some things in that neighborhood, in that area. So when you think about just in brainstorming for yourself for a second, just quietly, the key people, how do you describe the key people that you need to be spending time with in order to grow and for them to grow? A win-win opportunity type of relationship. So does anyone right now feel confused on this? Like they want to just talk through it for a second, that don't understand? Yes, let's talk about it.
And I know it's not the way to look at it, but I don't want to use somebody. I'm not using them, but when I try to think of who do I need to, I'm trying to get past that. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So just give us an example of who you were thinking you want to get in front of.
Honestly, we have a business development. He's a vice president. He's wonderful. And I'm already connected with him, but I haven't met with him regularly.
Uh-huh.
But, originally I had thought of somebody in our HR department, but that can be risky because if you're vulnerable in some of your conversations, you might be sharing too much information. Does that make sense?
Okay.
I guess I'm trying to understand what this conversation looks like with certain people.
Okay, so maybe the next step of what I'm going to talk about is going to help, and let's see if it does. Okay, so I think all of us would agree that the best way for us to get introduced to someone is through someone that trusts, that has the relationship and trusts us, trust them. right? So now we've identified who we need to be spending more time with to help us reach our goals, right? If you're in a selling role, I don't know if anyone in here sells, but then sometimes you feel like, okay, I'm going to get in front. I don't want to present just the sale. I don't want to ask them for money. I don't, right? So let's look at who you need to be spending time with them. But the best way to get with them is going to be someone that has the relationship 1 degree away. Right? So that's what we call is very strategic. You want to be spending time with your ideal client or the ideal contact, that mentor, whatever. But this party that's right outside of here is the strategic relationship that knows you, knows them, and is going to be able to bridge that opportunity. Does that make sense? So now I want you to think 1 degree out, who would that be? So let's just start with a very simple example. I hope it's simple. Let's say that you want to meet with a brand new business owner. We'll go back to this. So they're just starting, right? And you are someone that provides, give me an example. You provide CPA services, right? So you want to be able to be their accountant as they grow, okay? So you want to meet them because you want to be that resource, that win-win for them, but you don't want to have a meeting and feel like you're selling them or feel inauthentic or something. Who else would that business owner be needing at this time and starting their business that's a trusted advisor resource? Who else has a relationship with them at this time? Think about that for a second. What'd you say?
Legal counsel.
Thank you. Yeah. So
it could be as simple as somebody, like you say, plumber, somebody who helped, or like who they rent from. Or,
right, yeah.
So it doesn't have to always be business. It
Yep.
could be, go to the same church. But so are you saying that, okay, you see who you need to get to.
Yep.
And then you need to figure out who they have.
Yep.
Here that you might know, and it could be as simple as the person who put the floors in your house put the floors in there,
yeah,
and you trust them, and he trusts them, and
yep.
So is that what you're kind of
That's
saying?
very, yes, except for a lot of times we might not know who put the floor in the house or something like that. So a lot of times you will see it more in business, like thinking them from a business mindset, so that we can think through strategically who they're working with as a trusted advisor in the business world. But that works just fine too. LinkedIn does an amazing job. If we now everyone's on LinkedIn, right, or knows LinkedIn. So you think, yeah, awesome. So you think, okay, 1st degree contact, that's who you know. Right? That's who you know. So if you now parallel this to your 1st degree is who you're trying to get to help you reach your goals, right? But the most powerful relationship is going to be the 2nd degree contact that has the relationship with both of you to make an introduction. Does that make sense? So I don't know if you would know all the time on flooring, but like someone who's legal counsel and accounting services to a small business owner, they could be very good to be able to help each other long term. Does that make sense?
And plus, couldn't you do research to see who that is by
absolutely
looking at the documents for incorporation and
yeah.
stuff like that?
Yeah. Yeah. Yes.
I was just going to add that selfishly, we meet everyone. And so, unfortunately, when you go to meet someone, you need to know what you want out of that relationship, and sometimes it could be you may feel uncomfortable, I think, about feeling like you're asking for something. You're not going to sit there and say, hey, do you want to be my mentor? That's too much work. That sounds really sweet, but at the same time, you have to know too that if this relationship it's mutually beneficial.
Yeah.
So that you're taking something out of it, you want to take something out of it, and you shouldn't be uncomfortable, I think, about wanting something from it, because everyone values their time. And if you're going to spend 45 minutes with someone, you want to feel like it is intentional and that you shouldn't feel uncomfortable about wanting something from that person.
Yeah, absolutely. And maybe sometimes it's just not the right timing, to your point, and just being able to let that person know if you do get introduced to them, let them know why you would like to meet with them, to, share with them what you do and learn more about what they do and see if there's a fit. But if they say, just at this time, it's really not I'm just busy, okay, and move on. It's not, and I think some people get really struck down and they're like, oh my gosh, people are saying no to me. And it's not that, just take that out of it. And it's not about you. It's just about they're busy, and move on and do it again, and find, at the right time, at sometimes the right time, it's perfect for you to come in and ask for a affiliation partnership, or ask for a sale, or ask, as you build that relationship. But just understand that not every time you get introduced or every time you have a contact, someone will say, yes, let's meet, right? You just have to keep doing it and keep cultivating those relationships.
I would respect someone more if they told me I don't have time right now, because then it shows that they value my time too.
Yeah.
So I would respect that more than someone just meeting me, not just being very superficial.
Yep.
personally.
Absolutely. Yes.
Well, I think that some people, when you first meet someone, you try to realize, how can I be a resource for you? How can I be a resource to them so that they can realize that my relationship with you is valuable? But then, like you said, timing may not be right. It's okay for them to just be a resource to you and you not necessarily have something to offer right then and there. Because there may come a point, and they know this, I know this, there may come a point where they're going to need me. And at that time, then I pay that back forward. That's to me, I don't know, that's how I look at it. It doesn't always have to be a give and take immediately.
Yep.
It can be a delayed give back. I just think if you come to the table being genuine, you allow them to make the decision and you're not making it for them, you're not tricking them into helping you.
Yeah.
Then you shouldn't feel guilty.
Yeah. Absolutely.
They're deciding to take that on, and I guess here comes my religion, but wait for it. I guess I feel like that. If I am helping you, there's going to come a time that someone's going to be there for me.
Yeah.
And that person that's accepting that relationship at that time, knowing at that time you have nothing to offer, I think they realize that. So it's okay.
Yeah. And one thing just off of exactly what you're saying and making sure that everyone here understands, when I say win-win as a very key foundational intentional process, I don't mean win-win right this very second. Like both of you have to have a reason to be. I'm saying that you're very open to developing a relationship that over time, maybe right now they need you for something, but over time you're going to be a resource. It's not transactional. Let's say that's the difference. Some people come in and it's like, I'm in here to get what I need done and move it on, see you later. There's no continuation of the relationship. It's all about them. So when I say win-win, it's the open opportunity to develop a relationship ongoing. And it could, like Nate, the plumber, right? How many years later? That was like 3 years after he had even started that business, and that I needed that at that time. I'd never hired him to be my plumber, but he was my resource. That makes sense?
You just take the opportunity to make yourself visible at
Yeah.
that moment. And then later it may play itself out when the time is right.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yes.
Also offering a little coffee talk I had last week. I just invited her to help me brainstorm, and we had a great conversation. And at the end of it, I didn't want it to be, I first start off with, tell me what's going on with you. I don't want to just launch into what's going on with me.
Yeah.
So we talked about what's going on in her world, then I understood how crazy busy she is, and we got to talk about me, and we stayed there for a while. And then I said, what can I provide? How can I help you? Or is there anything I can do right now? And she was taken aback. She's like, no one's asked me that. She didn't have anything to say, hey, I need you to connect me to so-and-so, but I think it struck something in her, I thought.
Yeah.
She's like, I don't know how to answer that. No one's asked me that. So
Wow. Yeah.
just saying, hey,
How can I help you?
it's out
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
So,
That's really good. Thank you. So in this section right here on page 3, where we're talking about brainstorming the key people, I hope that you've identified at least one key individual that is the decision maker, let's say, that you need to be spending time with to help you to achieve your goals. Right? So we're looking at the end contact, right? Who is that person? How do we describe them? Not just anybody, not just everybody. Let's define them, right? So the profile of that person. And then taking one step out is really where the power of all the networking comes, is who has that relationship with that person, or typically with those people. Does that make sense? So if you have at least one person written down, I hope. One type of person. Not their name, but one type. Okay, wonderful. Now my question to you here is, how often are you spending time with these people or this person? That profile of a person intentionally. Like, just think through it for yourself for a second. Are you? So that's the goal now. Like, that's what now that we're aware, okay, here's our goal, here's the people we need to be spending time with. Now I need to be intentional about spending time with them to help me get there. So down here in this next step right here, and I'd love to hear from just different people so we can all hear of, different organizations and places. When you think of the places that you need to be, the rooms that you need to be in, and to Lois's point about, I keep going to places and I'm seeing the same people. Well, what environments do you need to be putting yourself in, or where are the places online that you need to be spending time learning, for example, to get in front of those people. So I'd love to hear from you for a second. I gave some of my best places. I am a Rotarian. I'm part of the Rotary. That's really great for me. By the way, if you're part of like a civic club like that, like a Rotary or something that invites guests all the time, and you feel like people get introduced to you a lot, but you're like, I don't have time to meet with everyone. Besides having your own event, you could invite them to come. And it's great because the Rotary wants you to bring people and expose them, but you could have lunch together and you're already going anyway, bringing a guest or 2 or 5, right? So that's a really great, best practice. Also, church group is great for me. It's a really good place where people with the same values, so we open up that conversation because we have that same common bond on our values and beliefs. And then mentoring Women's Network, I talked about it because I was there yesterday. I love people that, want to invest in themselves and be better. And so, just yesterday in that room, I had probably 10 prospects for my business because we were there for the reason of mentoring, but I was able to work the room, which is my next step, showing you how to work a room to get to the right people. We were there for a platform of we all believe in this mentoring, and then I found the key contacts in the room, and now I'm setting meetings with them. Does that make sense? So now I want to hear from you. Where are the places that, thinking about who you need to be spending time with, where do you need to be? What do you need to be doing?
So like the chamber has all those networking events, the chamber, like the Hobnob and some of those other events that may be an opportunity, I think, maybe.
And I think the chamber breaks it down into BOI is one initiative, right? Or it's business owner initiative. So if you're targeting small business owners, or they have corporate executive, so you can pick the ones that make the most sense based on who you need to get in front of. Yeah. What else? Yes.
There's a group. It's called Passport to Employment.
Okay.
It's for folks that are underemployed or out of work, and it's just as an HR person, but just as a community person as well.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people who are out of work or underemployed, but it's a way of giving, and then I like what you said about the win-win, but not necessarily immediately.
Yeah.
I've been there a few times, and now I still keep in contact, and as I need people, or as I just, it's just a way to keep cultivating. I think I saw something on LinkedIn that they've been around for 7 years now. It's totally, no one gets paid, and they've placed 633 people.
Oh, wow.
And it's just, it's
wow.
just a different way to go.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you. Very good. Very strategic, on the places that you need to be spending time. Where else? In the small business world, where do you spend time? And knowing that who your ideal client is, where's the best place for you, Phil?
For some of the early stage startups, I've been trying to get involved with where I went to school, Ball State.
Okay.
Some of the entrepreneurs come out ready
Great.
to go right after they get their degree. So being involved with their business school, having contacts there, professors that I had, are able to make referrals that sometimes lead to business.
Yeah, great. I don't know if you're familiar with Launch Fishers. Yeah, so a great place that every single day entrepreneurs that, it's really kind of their launching pad, or their extra, office outside of their home before they get a real office. And I know, with your services, it'd probably be very strategic to spend, a day or two there every month. So, what else? Yeah.
I'm just going to rattle off.
Sure, please.
When you go to conferences, there's always a networking piece, and try not to sit with the same people that you know.
Yeah.
When you go to conferences, also anything related to your kids' school. I have 3 kids. And
Yeah.
they're in preschool, middle school, and high school, and so when you're around sports parents, or you start building relationships with them on the kid level, just that sitting at the sideline for whatever, you start learning more of what they do and the opportunities, and I've made some connections there.
Very good.
Just through this kids piece, and never have worked for anything that they do.
Yeah.
The other thought I had was the specific groups Urban League or the Black Expo, and they usually have these little lunch and learns, or little kind of small group settings, young professionals or some things like that, where you're interacting with folks that may not be in the same industry, but they have something in common, like you're African American or you're woman, some things like that.
That's really good. Absolutely. You made me think of one that I like to mention, which is serving on a board of something that is, really important to you. Like you talked about that too. I mean, that's a great place. You need like-minded folks around a table, and it's been really good for me. So I hope all of you have at least wrote down, at least one thing, if not two, of different places. And I would love to be a resource. I mean, this is a lot of where I spend my time, is just going to the right places and helping our members get to the right places to spend their time, intentionally. So if I'll get you my information, I think it might be on here before we leave. And if you need ideas, I'd be happy. If you said, hey, I found out my ideal contact is people in a financial role in companies, like where should I go? Great. I'd love to send you what I do know is available. So let's move on to the next step. And I want to tell you a little story about yesterday, just since it's fresh in my mind. I've had 6 people out of that room reach out to me and say, hey, I'd love to learn more about your LinkedIn training programs. I'm like, that's so awesome. It really, really worked yesterday, just with the LinkedIn component that I shared. And here's what I maybe would have done with my introduction versus what I did yesterday. So I think many times when we're asked to introduce ourselves, it's just, well, I'm Nikki Lewallen. I'm the executive director of Rainmakers, and we love helping people in business. And it's like, that's great. It's an okay introduction, and it might have shown my personality or something, but it didn't tell people how I could help them, or maybe what they could pass along to be able to help me, right? So what I said yesterday, maybe not verbatim, but this is how this LinkedIn stuff came about. And I said, well, in Rainmakers, one of my roles is to stay on top of the very best practices to help people really leverage their time in business development. And so I love doing LinkedIn training, whether it's for groups and companies or individuals. That's kind of the area that I shine in right now. So that's what I would be looking for, is to be able to help people with that. So just really simple, in that, 15 seconds that I had to introduce myself, and I've had an amazing response from it. So what I want to help you do today is craft an introduction with the way that I teach people all the time. Who are you? Plus, what do you do? Plus, what makes you different, or what's unique? And then the fourth component is so important. What are you working on? What do you need? What do you want? Who are the key contacts? Have an ask in there, rather than just they could read the roster and see who is there. But give the opportunity for people to be able to help you. Have you ever been in a situation where it's like, okay, now time, everybody go around and give their 15-second or their 30-second spiel, right? Everyone do that? Okay, so this is a great practice. This is exactly what people want to hear. If everyone went around and they all did this, you would know exactly, after everyone's done, who you could help. Because they just told you, right? Rather than just saying, I'm, Bob, and I'm the local representative with First Merchants Bank. I have no idea. Like, I know First Merchants Bank, I see him, but I'm not going to go talk to Bob because I have no idea what he's looking for. But if he said, I'm Bob, I'm with First Merchants Bank, and we specialize in working with local restaurant owners, and I'd love to meet one if you know him. And it's like, my uncle's a restaurant owner, I should go talk to him, right? So there's a reason to connect with that person. So for the next few minutes, if you want to get back together with your partners, what I'd love for you to do is to take, who are you, what do you do, what makes you different, and what do you need or want, and then craft that into a one-line introduction. We're going to practice those in a couple minutes. So take about 10 minutes to do that. Anybody? Yesterday, people were jumping up to do this. They were so excited. It's like, I want to tell you what I'm working on. Yeah.
I'm a not-for-profit administrative professional with expertise in program coordination, grant research, and event planning. I'm particularly interested in the not-for-profits in the areas of education and economic development. I would appreciate any suggestions that you might have for contacts in those two areas. Thank you.
Great. That's very good. Awesome. Thank you very much. Do you get the nonprofit news? Okay. I always like to skim through I think we were talking about that too. Yeah. Awesome. Who else has one? Yeah, please.
I'm Erin Monahan, and I'm the Donation Events Manager for Goodwill Industries of Central Indiana. And my job is to build community partnerships and plan donation events. So what's unique about our service is everything we provide is free. The tools in terms of marketing, the pickup itself, and just leading you through the steps to plan a donation event for your organization. Could be anything, any size, school, for-profit, nonprofit, and we just come together and helps you simplify your space, declutter, but you're also, those donations we're so grateful for them because they feed our mission to provide people with jobs and employment.
Awesome. I think that is a really good start. One thing I would think is just take it and then just cut it down a little bit. Less is more, just because people will they'll catch on to it if it's quick and real direct. So that, because you want them to come up to you and say, okay, yeah, I can help you with that. Versus like, okay, I kind of know, because you might have said too much.
No.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
so just a thought. What else? Anyone else have one they want to just practice? It was a great room to practice in. Just to, take a step. Yeah.
So you have on here what makes you different. And
Yeah.
I was able to answer the rest, but I was questioning, like, does that mean, am I kind of giving myself a plug? Like, what makes me different is my legal background and my leadership experience? Or am I saying what makes me different? I mean, that's what I was thinking was,
That's good.
how am I distinguishing myself? Is that?
That's a good one. Or, like let's say that in the marketing world, so I'm a marketing specialist, and for this introduction that I did yesterday, I'm specializing in LinkedIn, so that this could change all the time. So like if you're an attorney and you specialize in estate planning, right, you would want to say, rather than I'm with such and such law firm, I specialize in estate planning law and I'm looking to partner with home health companies or something. You know what I'm saying? But you can gear it, maybe I didn't say that earlier, you can always tweak it based on the audience that you're with.
So
That makes sense.
I specialize in.
Yeah.
Aside from those words, then you wonder, like, why am I plugging myself? Like,
Yeah.
Isn't that too overt?
Yeah.
Right? Okay, so I see where you're going.
Yeah, and I don't know if in the top, I just gave 2 examples. I'll read through these really quick. So my name is Sally Johnson, and I work for Integrity Financial, and I love helping women business owners create a debt-free and abundant life. I'm looking to meet business coaches who work with women entrepreneurs. Okay, the other one is I'm David Britton, Operations Director for Indianapolis Healthcare, and I'm looking to connect with home healthcare franchise owners to share our premier training programs with them. So, does that answer your question? Is that helpful? Okay, that you can gear it towards the audience and the type of room that you're in each time. Anybody else want to try one?
Can I just ask
Yeah,
a
please.
question? In your line of work, do you find that women have a lot harder time plugging themselves or asking for something?
Yeah.
Because it just seems like as a group, we're just hard. It's like, you mean I can ask for something?
Yeah. There was a panel of women yesterday at this conference. I'm so glad you're saying this. And I was just there yesterday. And their big thing was on women putting out their need for something, because we all kind of think like just naturally that we just take on the world, we can do it all, and but it's like you have to ask, you have to be, and they were saying men are so much better at that. They ask for help and they say this is what I need, and more put themselves out there. The other thing they were talking about was like with women in finance, like the numbers difference in what women make. It's a lot of times just because we don't ask. So I think that translates all the way around. It's like, I think that's what the panel was talking about. So I think we need to break that trend. Just, start putting ourselves out there. And it's not from a selfish reason. It's just like, if we're all in this to help each other, let's let each other know what we're working on so that we can. Okay, awesome. Well, I hope that you can practice that a little bit more and use it and see how it works for you. Like yesterday, like I said, it was awesome. I've got a number of people to follow up with on that one introduction that I got to make. Okay, so just a couple of best practices, and I know we're down to like about 10 minutes before we're in closing. So I just want to run through a couple of best practices. How many of you have spent time having one-on-one meetings, like one-on-one networking meetings? Yeah. Okay. So I don't know if you're like a number of people I've talked with, but they get kind of frustrated with maybe how much time they spend doing these one-on-one meetings, but then how do we create a result from that? Or how do I meet with the right people? And how do I manage my time? We talked about that. So just a couple of key tips that I have for you is, number one, pre-qualify your one-on-one time. Don't take every meeting that ever comes your way, and we've talked about this today. If you could invite them to something else because it's not the right time right now, maybe to still have that touch with them, invite them to go to Rotary with you. Or if you just need to be upfront and say, you know what, would you mind checking back with me in like 90 days because I'm just under a deadline right now. Just being upfront and honest and authentic about where you are, because one-on-one meetings, I mean, it's probably an hour each time, if not an hour and a half by the time you drive there and all the time. So you really need to, protect that time and make sure that it's a win-win opportunity at that time, and be okay with saying no if you need to. Number two is, for the meeting, have an agenda. I don't mean for this to be a selfish agenda. I mean for you to make sure you know what you want to accomplish in the meeting. Otherwise, sometimes you can have side conversations and you're like, look at the time, I got to go. So having an agenda of what you want to accomplish and asking that other person, like, does this sound good? Is this what you want to accomplish today? You don't have to be real like cookie cutter with it. You don't want to feel like, okay, so we're coming to the table to, but just, so today I'm so excited that I get to meet with you, and I want to learn more about you and what you're working on. And I'd love to walk out of here with a couple of things that each of us could do to help each other. Does that sound good? It's just easy. You know, it doesn't feel like you're like, can you review this paper? And it's not like that. It's just making sure that you're on track with what you want.
So I can write it verbatim.
Okay. What'd I just say? Yeah.
Oh, it's taped, so we can
Okay, good. Yay. But basically, let me just think through real quick, because it is the natural thing I say is, you know, when I meet with someone, it's really good to meet with you today. I'd love to figure out what you're working on, how I might be able to help, and find some ways that each of us can follow up to help each other. Does that sound good? Or did you want to add anything else to what we were talking about today? And then just do that on both sides. And if you've got an hour, just kind of watch your time. Be like, okay, I'd love to hear about you for 30 minutes. What are you working on? You know, how I can help. And then make sure that you gradually kind of move into time for you too. Okay, one-to-one meetings. Also, when you have key people in your life, whether it's for a mentoring, personal growth type of interaction, or you are doing that for them, either way, you know, somebody that you're helping grow or they're helping you grow, or if you have a strategic relationship, I shared Jamar with you. He and I meet all the time. Like, we have a regular standing meeting, a lunch meeting, and a phone call once a month. So we're always on cycle with staying on top of working together. So I suggest that all of you figure out who those key people are for you. You know, like one of the people on my staff, she's our success manager. She manages like the success of the organization. She's kind of my right hand when it comes to management. She and I meet twice a month, once for personal growth, we read like a book chapter and then we get together and we talk about it. That's one thing, personal growth meeting. And then the other meeting is for like catching up, like, because time flies and it's like, okay, how's Amber doing, and how, you know, different people on our team. So just having those standing meetings to make sure that we're on top of it. The other thing with one-to-one meetings is, are you writing down what you're going to do, like document or sending yourself an email or something, so that there's something coming out of that time? Whether it's just, let's connect it on LinkedIn, maybe it's something as simple as that, just to stay in touch, or I told them I was going to connect them with a couple people. Did you document that? Did you write it down? So you go and do it and follow up. Okay, so next on networking events, a couple tips I have for you, and feel free, you guys can chime in too if you have some tips to share. Networking events are the same thing about pre-qualifying. So you need to be spending your time at the types of events that cater to the people that you want to meet. I know, Erin, you were talking about ASTD earlier as something that you wanted to check out. You know, and so does anybody know the association? What is the acronym?
They changed it recently. Something.
It's training and development.
Training and development.
Training and development.
Society of Training and Development.
Society of Training. Yeah, something along those lines.
ATD.
ATD now. Okay.
It's because they wanted to get rid of that STD part.
Oh, I get it. Okay. Good call.
Yeah.
Somebody, yeah. Yeah. So knowing that, okay, that's the type of environment that I think would be good for me. So our conversation then, Erin and I said, I know a couple people that love that organization. They've been part of it for a while. So I'm going to connect her to them so that she can be their guest or talk to them about, you know, what it's like there or whatever. Right. So just being intentional on the places that you want to be spending time. Okay, so when you go to these events, have a goal for yourself, like for what you're going to do to help yourself and to help other people. And it could be as simple as, I want to find 2 people in here before I leave today that would be a really good start to a relationship. So I'm going to figure that out based on, I'm wanting to connect with, you know, financial directors of companies. So I'm going to work the room to figure that out. And my introduction will be geared towards that. And who I'd love to meet today are people that have a financial leadership role in a company, right? So when you get to introduce yourself and then somebody comes up and they're like, oh, you should probably connect with them. They heard what you needed, right? So be on point with like, what are you working on for yourself? And then find a couple people that you can help, or you hear their introduction and go up to them and say, hey, I heard that you like to work with small business owners, and I met this lady, her name's Nikki, and she works with small business owners. I'll connect you on LinkedIn, right? So finding a way to be able to help. And then as far as networking events, the other thing, whether you create your own event to have, you know, on-site a luncheon or something, or you're part of Rotary or whatever it is, use that as a leverageable source to touch people. Like, so you don't have to have one-on-one meetings with everybody. Use it as a, invite 2 or 3 guests each time, and it's a great system. You're there, you know, with Rotary, it's every week. With some groups, it's once a month, but it's a good system. A networking event can be a good touch system for you to maintain relationships. And then as far as relationship touches, so all of us fall into the category, into the challenge, I'm sure, of like, we meet these people and how do we stay updated with everybody, all these contacts that we have. And so I think it's really important that you find a couple of key things that are important for you or easy for you to use. So for me, LinkedIn, I keep going back to it because I love it. I share knowledge on LinkedIn. Like I'll share a blog, I'll share a video, I'll share a quote, I'll share, so I put content out there for my connections, and people will say like, oh, that's awesome, that's really good. And so many times people will say, gosh, I'm so glad for our connections on LinkedIn or Facebook. I use Facebook too. Because you post and I see what you're doing. It's just if you be intentional, I connected with them and then add them to your Facebook or LinkedIn or whatever you prefer. And then you're regularly posting, you stay in touch with people through technology, which is a cool thing. And the other thing with relationship touches, for your key relationships, put them on your calendar. If I want to make sure that we stay in touch twice a year, or if they're my strategic partner every month, put it on your calendar. Put a reminder so that you're regularly reaching out and staying on top of that relationship. But I think most importantly, you have to create a system for you that works. And I use a CRM. I don't know if anybody uses a customer relationship management tool, but it sends me reminders every day of people and I don't stay on top of it all the time, but it helps me to stay on touch and on point, it'll send me a reminder and I see all the things that I need to kind of stay on top of, and that's great. And some of those are very inexpensive to be able to have those reminders. So I know we're about out of time. So what I'm going to do, because I know Dana has some things that she wants to cover, is I'm going to say your homework is to figure out what are the 2 things from this session today before this. It's so easy to take this paper and throw it in your back seat and it sits there for a month and the kids spill milk on it and whatever. It's like, so if you write down 2 things, before you leave here today, what are the 2? And email it to yourself or take a picture of it and say, here's what I'm going to commit to do. I'm going to go check out that organization, or I'm going to have a one-on-one meeting with this person, or I'm going to hold myself to 3 coffee meetings a month like Erin was talking about. So I hope you all enjoyed the time. I think we're out of